Welcome back to Wild Mysteries Explained, a place where the wild hides secrets that science can't fully explain. Today we're journeying deep into the mist-covered swamps and shadowy bayous of Louisiana, where an ancient legend continues to haunt the imagination. This isn't just another werewolf tale borrowed from Europe. It is something far older, darker, and deeply tied to culture, faith, and fear. This creature is known as the Rougarou. The Rougarou is a legendary beast from Cajun and Creole folklore, a terrifying shapeshifter that stalks the night. Part human, part beast, it lurks in forests, marshlands, and cane fields, watching, waiting, and judging. For generations, its story has been whispered to children as a warning, shared among elders as a lesson, and feared by travelers who wander too far from safety after sunset. Unlike modern horror monsters, the Rougarou isn't just meant to scare. It represents morality, punishment, transformation, and the consequences of breaking sacred rules. So, join us as we explore the Rougarou in complete depth, its origins, its terrifying appearance, the curse that creates it, and its lasting influence on culture. The story of the Rougarou traces its roots all the way back to European folklore, specifically the French legend of the Lougarou, which translates to wolfman. In medieval France, the Lougarou was believed to be a human cursed to transform into a wolf-like creature, often as punishment for immoral acts or for disobeying religious laws. When French settlers migrated to North America, they brought their beliefs, stories, and fears with them. Over time, these legends adapted to the unfamiliar and intimidating lands of Louisiana, a world filled with endless swamps, strange animal sounds, and dense forests that seemed alive at night. As generations passed, the pronunciation and meaning of Lougarou slowly evolved into Rougarou. But more than just the name changed, the creature itself began to transform, absorbing local beliefs, Christian teachings, and even Native American shapeshifter traditions. What emerged was a uniquely North American monster, one shaped by isolation, faith, and the unforgiving wilderness. It became a powerful symbol in the New World. In Cajun and Creole folklore, the Rougarou is much more than a beast. It's a moral enforcer. Parents told stories of the Rougarou to keep their children from wandering into the dangerous swamps after dark. Elders spoke of it to remind people to follow religious customs and community rules. According to tradition, the Rougarou often targets those who break sacred laws, especially religious ones. In many versions of the legend, people who fail to observe Lent, disobey church teachings, or commit serious moral sins are at risk of becoming the Rougarou themselves. This turned the creature into a powerful social tool, not just a monster to fear, but a living reminder that our actions have serious consequences. The threat wasn't just physical danger, it was spiritual damnation. So what does this terrifying creature actually look like? Well, descriptions of the Rougarou vary slightly depending on the region and the storyteller, but certain features remain chillingly consistent across most accounts. The Rougarou is usually described as a tall, muscular humanoid creature. It's said to have a wolf-like or dog-like head with sharp fangs and piercing, glowing eyes. Its body is covered either partially or fully in dark, coarse fur, and it possesses long claws capable of tearing flesh. It also has long, powerful legs that allow it to run at an unnaturally fast speed. Some stories describe the Rougarou as able to walk upright like a human, giving it a truly uncanny and disturbing presence. Others claim it moves on all fours like a pure animal, a blur of fur and fury in the darkness. Its eyes are often said to glow a sinister red or yellow in the night, and its very presence is marked by an overwhelming sense of dread. But despite its monstrous appearance, many legends insist that the Rougarou is still human underneath the curse, fully aware, deeply ashamed, and trapped in its horrifying form. Now let's talk about one of the most chilling aspects of the Rougarou legend, the curse itself. According to traditional belief, a person becomes a Rougarou after committing a serious moral or religious violation. In some stories, the curse is placed upon them by supernatural forces as a punishment. In others, it's inherited or passed on through blood, a generational burden. The curse typically lasts for a very specific period, 101 days. During this time, the cursed individual transforms into the Rougarou every single night, only returning to their human form by day. The transformation is said to be painful, violent, and completely unavoidable. At the end of the 101 days, the curse can only be lifted if the Rougarou passes it on by drawing blood from another human. If this doesn't happen, the cursed person may either die or remain trapped as a monster forever. And here's where it gets even more terrifying: the rule of silence. The cursed person must never, ever reveal their identity as the Rougarou to anyone. If they do, death is said to follow almost immediately. This element of secrecy and isolation adds a deep layer of psychological horror to the legend. As a creature of the night, the Rougarou is primarily nocturnal. It's believed to emerge after sunset and must return to its hiding place before the first light of dawn. It actively avoids populated areas, preferring the solitude of the swamps, forests, bayous, and abandoned farmland. But despite its fearsome reputation, the Rougarou isn't always portrayed as a mindless, ravenous killer. In many stories, it hunts selectively, specifically targeting criminals, sinners, or those who violate sacred traditions. In this sense, it acts as a form of divine justice. However, other versions describe it as far more savage and unpredictable, attacking livestock, stalking lone travelers, and terrorizing entire communities. Its howl is said to echo through the wetlands, a sound that freezes listeners with fear and signals that something unnatural is nearby. It's a hunter, but whether it's a righteous one or a chaotic one depends entirely on who's telling the story. Over generations, communities living in the shadow of this legend developed methods to protect themselves from the Rougarou. One of the most famous and peculiar beliefs involves counting. According to legend, the Rougarou has a strange compulsion to count small objects placed outside a home, like coins, stones, or grains of rice. However, it can supposedly only count up to 12. If 13 of these objects are placed near a doorway or on a windowsill, the Rougarou becomes trapped in an endless loop of counting until sunrise, unable to enter the home. Other protective measures were simpler and more practical. Stay indoors after dark, avoid the swamps at night, and strictly follow religious practices. Carrying blessed items or religious symbols was also thought to offer some protection. These rituals did more than just offer peace of mind. They reinforced discipline, obedience, and respect for tradition within the community. The Rougarou legend also absorbed elements from Native American shapeshifter stories that were already present in the region. Among some tribes, tales existed of humans transforming into animals, often as a spiritual consequence or a form of punishment from the spirits. In these versions, the creature isn't always evil. Sometimes it serves as a guardian of the land, a warning spirit, or a symbol of an imbalance in nature. This influence added a fascinating layer of depth to the Rougarou myth, turning it into something far more complex than a simple European monster transplanted to a new continent. It became a hybrid creature, born of multiple cultures and fears. At its core, the Rougarou represents the profound fear of transformation, the terrifying idea that a person can become something unrecognizable, something monstrous, through their own wrongdoing. It reflects our deepest anxieties, the fear of moral failure, the fear of isolation from our community, the fear of punishment, and ultimately, the fear of losing our own humanity. By embodying these fears, the Rougarou became a powerful teaching tool. It reminded entire communities that behavior mattered, that rules existed for a reason, and that consequences, both in this life and the next, were very, very real. Today, literal belief in the Rougarou has faded for most, but its cultural presence remains incredibly strong. The creature appears in books, television shows, folklore collections, and even has its own festivals and amusement park attractions in Louisiana. Modern interpretations often present the Rougarou in different lights, sometimes as a straight-up horror creature, sometimes as a tragic anti-hero trapped by a curse, and often as a proud symbol of regional cultural identity and a fascinating local cryptid. These modern versions keep the legend alive, adapting it for new audiences while preserving its core themes of morality and transformation. And while the Rougarou is often compared to the European werewolf, it's important to recognize the key differences that make it unique. The Rougarou is intrinsically tied to religious and moral rules, particularly Catholic traditions like observing Lent. The curse has a specific duration and a structured way to be passed on. Its transformation is not always linked to the full moon, but rather to the setting of the sun. And most importantly, its entire identity is rooted in the uniquely southern swamp-based landscape of Louisiana. These differences make the Rougarou a distinct and captivating legend in its own right, not just a copy of the werewolf myth. The Rougarou is so much more than a creature of horror. It is a living reflection of culture, belief, and fear, passed down through generations of storytellers. Born from European legends, shaped by the American wilderness, and preserved through oral tradition, the Rougarou stands as one of the most fascinating and complex figures in all of North American folklore. Whether you see it as a monster, a warning, or a cultural symbol, the Rougarou continues to stalk the edges of our imagination, a shadow in the swamp, a whisper in the dark, and a timeless reminder that sometimes the greatest beasts are the ones we can become. Thanks for joining us on this journey into the bayou. If you enjoyed this deep dive, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell for more wild mysteries explained. See you next time.